Hello, everyone. We would like to welcome you back here where we are doing our last installment of parenting going back to school during trying to navigate during this pandemic. We would like to welcome you all to ask us any questions if you like. If you have any, if you want to add to the conversation, obviously we definitely want you all to have conversations amongst yourselves as well. My name is Alexandria Morris, and I am a family services therapist here with the Kindred Place. And
And I'm Catherine Collins. I'm clinical director, and we work with children and families across all kinds of issues. Some normative, helping families cope with everyday things, some helping when families have more significant issues that might be going on with them or their kids. But we're here to answer questions about children's issues,
yes,
parents' issues, and specifically, as Alexandria said, returning to school in this particularly difficult
time. Yes.
year. So feel free again. We have questions from y'all that we're going to be referring to, but call in, chat in with any more come your way. And we will, the first one, do you want to go ahead and take the first question?
Okay. Yes. So the first question is, I'm not feeling very confident about parent-teacher communication in this COVID era. This was an issue during virtual school, but I'm finding it an issue now too. Do you have any tips on how to stay connected with the school when things like social distancing, etc., remain a priority? And I can definitely speak to this. This is something that I am experiencing now, being a parent of children who are school age. Um, I can specifically speak to the communication with my children's school, and I think for the most part it has been really good. They have a dashboard where they identify the students who are, on who have been diagnosed with COVID and who may be quarantining. And I do know that this can be a very difficult thing, especially when you have to quarantine. Like, what are the requirements of that? How are we going to go about that? And just also making sure that we're aware of the exposure that our children are going through. If my child has been exposed to someone with COVID, and so. When I don't have questions that the school isn't providing, I just ask them. You know, I just ask them as much as they possibly can give me information, but definitely asking a question.
You know, I was thinking though, again, what a difference this year. Normally, parents want communication about what the homework assignments are, what
Yes.
the field trip's going to be, but now parents have to worry, am I going to hear that there's an infection in my child's classroom?
Yes,
Which kind of changes the whole nature of parent-teacher communication.
definitely.
But I wonder also if, we're not going into the schools and picking kids up in person and staying and chatting with teachers the way that maybe in the past, that what you're describing there needs to be even more of.
Yes.
Where it's email communication, or it's weekly updates, or maybe it's even if there's time to get individual reports on how your child is doing.
Yes.
Do your girls, do you get that kind of information on the girls, or is that asking too much from teachers?
I think that in this time, and I'm glad that you brought that up, asking too much from the teachers, but I think that right now during this time we can't communicate enough.
Mhm.
So in this time we are going to have to overly communicate, and so I do get weekly updates, but I still think that it is important just because a couple of weeks ago, as you know, I had to have one of my children come to work with me because they had to go through a quarantine. And so sometimes they're getting the information late as well. But as soon as they get it and they're able to process it, then I would like, as a parent, I would like a response. But like I said, if you have questions as parents, I think that it is definitely important to ask that, build relationships with the school administrator, build relationships with your school child's teacher, so that you can, if you have a question or concern, that you're able to ask those questions.
maybe as much as we're tired of Zoom and might not prefer email, thank goodness we have those ways to
Yes.
try and keep in touch right now.
Yes, most definitely.
So we have another question. Looks like this is from a mom in Memphis. Uh, my son is 6 years old and having difficulty making friends, which he never did before. We have an open relationship, thankfully, and we've discussed this together. But he's not sure why he's struggling to form connections since having gone back to school. I wonder if maybe his social skills got rusty during the pandemic, but obviously I don't want to tell him that. How can I be supportive as a parent? So that's a good question for a couple of reasons. I think a couple of things come into play. That when your child was home and you didn't see any indication of social anxiety, that might be a consequence of two things.
Yeah.
One, he was mostly with his family, didn't probably have a whole lot of occasion to be with a group of kids and have to deal with all the peer relations that he does now. And then the other piece, if he was anxious about COVID, because what did you say? He's 9. He's old enough to have heard plenty. He might have been anxious about COVID, but since he was home and perhaps quarantined and safe and sound, it wasn't as big of an anxiety. So now that he's going back, I think you're right. It could be, I think we hit this a lot. You don't want to say something to a child that may plant worries in his head or make him feel bad. So I can understand that this mom doesn't want to say, well, maybe you're just out of practice with your friends. On the other hand, and again, everyone knows their own child and there's no one way to do things, but another consideration is sometimes kids have a hard time putting into words what their worries are.
They do.
And sometimes it really helps for a parent to assist with that. So maybe you could have an open relationship with him. It's great. Sometimes a way to ask a question without feeling like you're
Creating.
is to say something like, I know a lot of children are having a hard time going back to school because they're just not used to being around all their friends anymore.
Agreed.
And it's easier for a child to respond to, lots of kids have that same worry, than, are you out of practice with your friends?
Yes.
So I think asking those questions as a parent is a good thing.
Yes. I agree. What I heard you say is acknowledging that this may definitely be an issue, but you're not alone in what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
This is an experience that other children are experiencing, but even as mom, I'm experiencing as well. And so let's work together to navigate this process.
That, I think one of the best things that we can say to our kids is, I know you feel bad about this, whatever it is now, but we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it together. Automatically, the child feels supported and like, okay, mom's got this.
Yes, yes. And I like what you said, supported. And because that's what they need to during this process. So I definitely agree. Okay, so we have another question from Dana from Atuka. How can I perform self-care as a parent when it just seems like another project to take on? With everything else going on, I know it's important to take care of myself in order to take care of my children. I think that is a loaded question, but it is really important to, as parents, take care of ourselves. I say this a lot of times, especially when I'm working with my individual clients, is that you can't pour if you're empty. And so it's really important to find a space for yourself where you can replenish, rejuvenate. And yes, it may seem like an extra task, but you do have to make yourself a priority. I advocate that a lot, making yourself a priority, and even in the smallest of things. It doesn't have to be something super elaborate every time, but just taking a moment to just sit and do nothing.
So, I'm not going to put you on the spot here, but I will tell you, you have 3 little children, a full-time job that's demanding emotionally and in other ways. How do you manage it? You seem to have found some kind of balance. How do you manage, and what's helpful for you?
And to be honest, that's just half of it. Just being a full time mom, working a job, being a wife, it is a lot of different responsibilities, and I've taken on other personal responsibilities. But what helps me, honestly, I can say, is my faith. So I find self care in doing, in reading, spending time with God. That helps me a lot. But also, I would say is, just taking each day by day, and doing what I can, and what I cannot handle at the moment, I just don't even
Don't
handle.
beat yourself up about
Yeah,
it.
just don't beat myself up about it, because it's no good if I'm frustrated. Because another thing too, I think is very important: outlook, perception, how I see different things. It does not help me to get frustrated or to become overwhelmed. Not to say that I don't experience those emotions, because I do sometimes, but still knowing that I have requirements, I have responsibilities, and just doing what I can.
I wonder, like you were saying, there's not one size that fits all, and maybe
Mhm.
the other piece is to give yourself permission for whatever it is that charges your batteries. Maybe it's watching a Netflix show,
Yes.
or going for a walk with the dog, whatever works.
Yes, but the other thing that I had to learn is that some days everything.
And wait, oh, they are old enough to understand what the Delta variant is and are anxious about kids getting very sick from COVID. For example, hearing news reports about kids in the hospital. I'm at a loss to know how to approach this. What can I say or do? So, that's one that has been the backdrop of so many of the questions that we've heard over the last several weeks.
Yes.
And I guess to some extent, I think, I'm going to kind of repeat what I was thinking about with the previous question, that again, now that he's back in school, you may see more COVID-related anxieties than you did when he was home, because he felt safer at home.
Yes.
But this is a tough one for parents, because I think all of us hear the reports about the children in the hospital, and more children are getting sick, and it's terrifying for anyone. You can imagine how difficult it would be for a little one to process. And the other challenge is we can't say to them, "Oh, this is nothing to worry about. You're gonna be fine," because we're just not going to give them fake assurance.
Yes, I agree.
So I guess it's like you were saying before, we certainly have to acknowledge that, yeah, it is a scary thing, and I get it that you're scared. It makes all of us nervous. But here's what our family is doing to keep safe, and here's what we're going to continue to do to keep safe. And whatever else is going on is important, school, activities that are possible to do, but we are going to do everything in our power. So you try and exert control when you can, and just continue to be available in the regular kind of reassuring ways that you can.
Yes, I definitely agree. So we have another question. How do I tackle bedtime anxiety? It seems to be directly related to anxieties around returning to school. Not going to bed means not getting up and needing to go to school. So this question is from Anna from West Memphis. Generally,
Bedtime.
yes, bedtime. Bedtime can be a lot, even outside of COVID. Just trying to get children to settle down and prepare for the next day. But I think specifically as it is related to COVID, and much of what the conversation has been about today is just giving your children reassurance, acknowledging that this is a difficult time that we are in, and walking them through that process. For me specifically, I just had an experience like this with one of my children literally last night. And I had to, in bedtime, what I understand is that bedtime may take a little bit longer than normal. And so that may require me, sitting with her for a moment to relax her, talk to her. We read books almost every night. And so, reading a book, she, before I walked out of the room, she even asked me, she said, "Mom, can we pray?" And so I took that opportunity to to pray with her, because that's something that she also felt like she needed and what she wanted. Just being able to be there to support this time. And again, understanding that bedtime may look a little different, it may take a little bit longer, and having patience to endure that process with them.
Are you big on bedtime routines, kind of winding down a little cozy ritual to help them settle in?
Yes, we definitely have to have a routine, and so I think that is important too, so that they know what the expectation is. But it doesn't take away the fear or the concerns that they may have. But like I said, just helping them through that process. Just sometimes it may be a conversation, and we just have to have a conversation. And then she's like, "Mom, just please lay with me." And so I say, "That's fine. That's what you need from me right now. I'm just gonna lay with you for a moment."
I hear from a lot of parents that there's more, will you please lay with me for a few
Yes.
minutes before bed? And I know that there are some things you don't want to get into a long-standing pattern about, but it sure is understandable.
It
If the
is.
little one is anxious, that a parent just kind of soothing them down is a
Yeah.
good thing.
And I think and for me, I don't want to create a pattern, but we can deal with that
Yeah.
after the fact.
Good point.
Let's
Deal with what you
just
have to
deal
do
with what
now.
we have to do now.
So I think we're gonna probably be winding up pretty soon, but we have another one here. What is the difference between feeling anxious, sad, angry, and having an actual disorder? It sounds like an obvious question, Dad. What a good question, and I'll tell you the thought that immediately comes to my mind. How often, when my kids were little, they would have a fever or be acting strange or have some weird rash,
Mhm.
and I would take them to the pediatrician, and sometimes it felt like I was either hearing, "She's completely fine, just give her some Tylenol, it's just
Yeah.
a little virus." And I would feel like, am I an overreacting parent?
Mhm.
But on the other hand, sometimes that's exactly the news that you go to a professional for. You're doing fine, continue to support in this kind of way.
Yes.
And so I would tell myself, it doesn't mean I'm an overreactive parent. It means I was paying attention to my kid.
Yes.
And I think that you can think about anxiety disorders in a similar kind of way. Because all children are going to have times when they're irritable or worried or upset, and it could be just a little passing virus, and give them
Mhm.
extra support and they'll be fine. The general rule is, if, as you know your child best, if you're seeing changes in behavior,
Yeah.
crying a lot, sleep impairment, tantrums, irritability, refusal to go to school, anything that's out of
Yep.
the ordinary for your child, if it's, you look at the intensity, how intense is the reaction? And
Mhm.
it's just a little thing now and again that passes, or is it becoming an issue in your child's day-to-day life? How frequently do these behaviors occur? Just
Mhm.
every now and then, you kind of see what happens. And the duration, how long has it been going on? If those three issues are elevated, then go ahead and be the proactive parent to get an evaluation.
Yes.
Not just to have them see someone to help you with making that decision. And if you hear everything's fine, just give them some extra support for a couple of days, then that's perfectly good news. And if there is more help that you could need, then good to have someone there to provide it.
Some different resources and skills, yes. Okay, so we have another question. What if my child's school closes again, or my child has to self-isolate? I'm worried about access and making sure they keep up and just their overall mental well-being. Do you have any suggestions of how to talk them through this? Okay, so I think again, this is kind of along the same lines of what we've been talking about throughout this session. Is that you know helping them to navigate this process, because if they do have to self isolate, it's really nothing that we can do about that. We want to talk to them about the importance of why it is that we are self isolating, so that they can protect themselves and so that we protect others. But then too, I think that it's important to just again be the safe space that they need to talk about how it is that they're feeling. And again, if they have to isolate, it's really nothing
we can't protect them from that.
Yeah, it's really nothing that we can do, but can help them to try to get a sense of understanding of why it is that this has to happen.
I can see where it would be so demoralizing for everyone though, because we've been doing this and going through this for so long and thinking that things would be different now. So again, everyone knows their own child, but go ahead and problem solve with your,
Yeah.
with your kids. What would help? If we
Yes.
had more family time, if we took breaks during the day,
Yes.
if we had some stress relievers we could do together, acknowledge with them and see
Yes.
if you can come up with a list. This is what our family is gonna do to try to
Yes.
get through it.
And allow them to have some input in that,
Mhm.
give them some
Mhm.
room to add some type of suggestion.
And they may say, we want chocolate for breakfast, and they'll say, no, that one won't work.
Yeah.
We might come up with something
A
together that will help
negotiation.
them better.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So we would like to thank you all for joining us today. We do want to touch up on a few reminders. Is that we still have our parent survey up. It is available to you in both English and Spanish. You can find this on our website and our Facebook page. Also, it is important for parents to model
Mhm.
positive change, coping, communication skills. Our children pay very close attention to our responses and how we handle and do things and how we feel.
Mhm.
So that is extremely important. Oh,
Remembering,
yes.
as you were saying, to take care of ourselves. I love your metaphor that we can't pour if we're an empty vessel.
Mhm.
And we will be posting a recap of some of the things that we talked about today. We talked about parent communication, anxiety, social skills, bedtime rituals, and trying to gauge how serious your children's reactions might be. So this is our final one for today for
Yes.
returning to school. But in a few weeks, we will be launching another series related to issues of family violence, as October is.
Domestic
Domestic
Violence
Violence
Awareness Month. Yes.
So but others of our peers at Kindred Place will look forward to seeing you then for that series.
Yes, and we really thank you all for joining us today.